We go now to Montana Governor Steve Bullock, who is in Denver, Colorado, a stop on his way to campaign in Iowa today. We have seen this new Iowa poll, Governor, and it says about 2/3 of likely caucus voters say they prefer someone who can beat President Trump versus someone whose agenda they actually agree with. Given that read, you're not breaking through in these polls. How do you make the case that you should be the candidate?
Yeah, Margaret, thanks for having me first. Yeah, and I just got into this about 3 weeks ago because I had a job to do. My legislature was still in session. But really, we need to make sure that we can not only bring out our base, but also win back places that we lost last cycle. And I'm the only one in the field that actually won in a Trump state. He took Montana by 21 points. I won by 4. So I think that I have something meaningful to offer to this. I've also, my whole time I've been governor, I've led with a legislature that's about 60% Republican, but we've been able to get progressive things done, like getting dark money out of our elections and getting health care for 10% of my population, record investments in education. So look, number one focus certainly is beating Donald Trump, but we also got to bridge some of the divides to make our economy and government work for folks outside of D.C. again.
But if what's convincing voters is your viability rather than your platform, and at this point you do not qualify to appear on that debate stage at the end of the month, you have just a few more days to kind of rectify that. How long can you stay in this race, and can you make it onto that debate stage?
Yeah, and we still have 240 days before Iowans first express their preferences in the caucus. So was certainly disappointed this week when heard that they wouldn't count one of the polls. But if I had to choose between chasing 100,000 voters and getting health care for 100,000 Montanans, like I just did, I'd make that choice for health care each and every day. I think we still have a long way to go before this thing's decided. You can go back to 1991. Bill Clinton didn't even get into this race until October.
But how do you get the kind of money you need to be able to sustain the race if you can't make it onto the debate stage?
Sure. Well, was so pleased even the day I announced about 3 weeks ago, $1 million came in, contributions from all 50 states. So we'll continue to get out there. We'll continue to both listen to folks and also travel. Like this week, I'm going all throughout rural Iowa. And you look at 1/3 of the counties in Iowa voted for Obama twice and then Trump. If we can't win back places like that, if we can't win back places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, we're not going to actually win this election. I can do those sort of things.
Your campaign certainly was critical of how the DNC made the determination regarding qualifications for the debate stage that you just were explaining. Given all the controversy back in 2016, how the DNC handled things, do you trust that they are playing fair with you?
Well, I get that, we want to make sure that we get on to making sure that we have a candidate that can beat Donald Trump. But really, at this point, we still have a long way to go in this. And this is about people talking to people and actually the voters expressing their preference more than the DNC rules.
But do you trust that the DNC will play fairly by you?
Well, I hope that the DNC will play fair by everyone in the field, because that's their role, is to facilitate the voters' options, not to try to limit it. And certainly did have frustration and disappointment that a poll that was, by their standards, I think viewed as, one of the qualifying organizations, that this is where we are. But where we are, there are some things I can control, some things that I can't.
You're talking about those campaign finance issues. I mean, that's really the only policy platform on your website right now. What do you stand for? What is your main agenda item that defines you?
Well, yeah, I was Attorney General when Citizens United decision came up, and have done more to try to make sure that elections are decided by people, not corporations, than anybody else in this field. Fundamentally, we got to get the economy working for all of us, not just the Donald Trumps of the world. And we have to make sure that people believe that their vote and their voice matters. Once we start doing that, we can deal with it. And that's the way we'll make meaningful progress in other areas.
Well, farm bankruptcies have doubled over the past 5 years. So if you're president, how do you change that? How do you handle China in a way differently than President Trump has?
Sure, and first of all, we have to do everything we can to make our farmers and ranchers viable. Even in Montana, we did like student loan assistance to try to get people back to the family farm. I was talking to someone in Iowa 2 weeks ago, lost $147,000 last year. And the notion that USDA will pay $70,000 back is what this farmer was saying. Not only do they have the financial hit, but they're also, we're going to lose markets. So the way that the Trump administration has approached this is just sort of the blunt instrument of tariffs. Certainly isn't working. And I think he's kind of turning America first into America alone. We've always made sure that we have open access to markets, not by going alone, but by going with other partners across the world and doing everything we can to open up markets.
Well, your state senator, Jon Tester, was recently on the program. He said he hadn't yet made an endorsement when I asked if he would back you. Have you persuaded him yet?
Yeah, I think that Jon Tester is now on board, and I'm awful excited about his endorsement. I've known and worked with him for a long time now. But he's also been such a voice in both rural areas, places that we need to win back, bridging some of the divides. He got over a dozen bills just dealing with veterans passed under even this president. And he's also, though D.C. hasn't done much, he's been a voice for making sure that we get the big money out of the system, which we have to do.
Governor, thank you very much. We'll be back in a moment.